This is the Chewing the Cud podcast, a podcast for the UK dairy industry, brought to you from the southwest of England and listened to around the world. Hello, my name's Andrew Jones and welcome to Chewing the Cud, and with me as usual is...
Neil Greggor. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
I'm all right, Neil. Yourself?
Good. Yeah, very well. Thank you. Been traveling around the world as usual.
Anywhere exciting this time?
Yeah, I went to Denmark again to see a lot of my old friends from around the world who all got together for a conference. Tremendous stuff.
Any gossip we should know?
Not really.
Not really. Expect this to say.
They've had a lot of rain and weather, and so yeah, same as what we've had.
Same as we've had. 'Cause let's be honest, we've had a crap summer, haven't we?
Yeah. Australia's a bit dry.
Well, yeah, always is.
Always is.
Well, I say that, but now it's September. We've had an absolute rubbish summer, and we thought now's a good time, ready for everyone to start thinking about it shortly, to talk about maize harvesting. So this month we're talking about maize harvesting. Hello, I'm Andrew Jones.
And I'm Neil Greggor.
And welcome to the Chewing the Cud podcast, a podcast for the UK dairy industry.
Farmer, advisor, processor, and everyone else. We have topics and episodes that will interest you.
We discuss the practical and the technical aspects of different UK dairy industry topics.
We aim to make you think about what you're doing and ask yourself, can it be done differently?
Listen to us speak with specialists from inside and outside the industry about their area of expertise.
Subscribe and listen to episodes for free on your favorite podcast platform, or sign up to our website www.chewingthecud.com for podcast notifications so you never miss an episode, and links to our socials.
Or email us direct on podcast@chewingthecud.com.
If you like what we do, please share and leave us a review to show your support. And that's it. Enjoy today's episode.
Hello and welcome back. Today we're here to talk about maize harvesting, and with us today is our guest Neil Groom. Hello, Neil.
Morning, Andrew. How are you?
Oh, it's going to get confusing. I've got two Neils with me today. I've had that before, but you're both Neil G. So anyway, but Neil is General Manager of Grainseed. He's also an MGA, so that's Maize Growers Association Council member. And through the MGA, he does various trials as well, don't you, for MGA?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we've quite a lot of agronomy trials for them in different parts of the country.
Yep.
But down here at Lackham, then the main focus here is the maize variety testing for the official bodies, NIAB and DEFRA.
Okay, so it's not just, as you say, it's not just for the MGA or whatever, it is for NIAB and DEFRA and everything. So this is official trials.
That's correct, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So, as usual, we start with a little bit about you. So tell us, Neil, how did you get to where you are today?
Well, I went to university. I did a general degree in agriculture many years ago now. And then I worked for NIAB at Cambridge, which is the plant variety testing station.
Yep.
And there I was the forage specialist.
Yep.
I worked there for 5 years, coordinating the official trials and also running some of the trials myself.
Yep.
And then I went across and worked for Grainseed in the commercial world.
Yep.
And I've been at Grainseed for 24 years. So
yeah, that's where I first met you, and now you've become general manager, so you're the big boss now.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
With all the advantages.
Is there?
I was say, and disadvantages as well. Yeah.
None of the responsibility.
So anyway, when I first spoke to Neil about talking maize, I thought we'd probably do one in the spring and talk about what varieties to look for and how to look for them. And then Neil said, well, actually, let's talk about maize harvesting, which I think actually is a really good idea, because I've certainly got clients, is this ready, isn't it? I think there are a lot of people that you tell them they're ready and they go, no. And they go too far and it's too hard and they're not making the most of it. So I think today actually could potentially be really interesting for people, basically what to look for in terms of harvesting your maize. So we're in, as I say, we're in one of the classrooms here at Lackham, doing this with Neil, but we are intending, providing the weather bucks up a little bit, we are intending to have a walk around some of the trials today and have a look at them and see what's going on. The idea being this will go out in September, so not too far away, so people start thinking about harvesting their maize. Now, potentially, you tell me more, Neil Groom, that say it's getting very confusing. This year, maize, I expect we've all seen it driving around. You've got some really good stuff and some really poor stuff. Now, a lot of that's due probably to when it was planted because we had the spring we had. But do you expect maize to be harvested late this year?
Certainly will be on some locations.
Yep.
But, I popped out into the trials this morning and it's surprising how far it's on.
Is it?
And that's really the development that the breeders have done over the last 20 years.
Yep.
We're not looking for a dead crop anymore to know it's ready.
Yeah.
You want a green plant that's still got all the sugars in the leaf and a mature cob.
I mean, that's 2 points. I was going to say, when I came back from Oz 15 years ago, I've got to be honest, that was one of the biggest shockers to me, is they're all harvesting maize, like, I don't know, let's say late September, mid-October, and I was going, what? It's green. It should be dead. I mean, I was used to before.
I was used to that.
Well, exactly. I was used to, mid-November is when you did it. So
after the first frost.
Yeah, exactly. All of those things. And so things have changed quite a lot in that time. But I mean, I guess that begs to me 2 questions. How much energy are they getting out of the plant and then out of the cob? Do you have a sort of 40-60 split or what it is?
Yeah, well, traditionally, 20 years ago, probably then, half the energy that you were clamping was coming from the grain and the cob.
Yep.
And half was actually from the plant.
Right.
And now, with modern genetics, we're getting bigger cobs with more starch grains per cob.
Yep.
And so we're really sort of 60% of your energy is coming from the cob and the grain.
Yep.
And then 40% from the actual, the stover, the plant.
But I'm guessing when we were talking about dead plant, and we're talking, 20, 25, well, for maybe 25 years ago, I'm guessing they weren't really getting a lot from that. It was just dead material. Was there some energy value to that material?
There'd be a
minimal amount.
A lot of fibre.
But it was fibre. It was there for the fibre. Yeah. I should say to anyone listening to this from overseas, we might talk about maize. In the UK, it's known as maize, but overseas, most places I know it's known as corn, isn't it? So we're talking about harvesting corn silage, maize silage, same difference, basically. Just one of the peculiarities of this country that we call it maize.
I grew up with maize.
Did you?
It really confused me. Basically, because the worst part about it, we obviously in South Africa we've got another language, and corn is korang, which is wheat.
Okay. Yeah.
So now when somebody says corn, I just think they've been pronounced korang incorrectly.
Yeah.
So maize is what we called it.
Well, exactly. Traditionally here, if you talk corn, that was wheat or barley.
Exactly.
It was cereal.
That's exactly how we. It's exactly. We just translated it.
And I suppose most people think it's corn on the cob, because I remember my father saying when the people first started to grow it
corn
here,
on the cob. Yeah.
It's, I don't know, what we're talking 35 years ago, more. I don't know. I mean, Neil Groom, you tell me otherwise. It's probably about then, wasn't it?
Yeah, sort of mid-70s.
Yeah,
when it was really sort of
and then it sort of took off in the 80s, didn't it? I'd say.
Yeah.
He said, you remember people pinching cobs off, thinking it was corn on the cob, take a bite into it, realise it's not got that sweet taste, and then being a wasted cob sort of thing. So
makes sense.
So it's definitely changed in that way. But and then I suppose the one I've got to ask it, because a lot of people ask me this: do you still think that maize needs to be wait till after Christmas to get the best out of it once it's in the pit?
Once it's in the pit, yes.
You still think Christmas?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
Because the conversation I often have with people is that always used to be the rule when it was harvested mid-November. So therefore, that was 6 weeks, was Christmas, which made sense. Well, surely now, if you're harvesting it now and you normally talk about 6 weeks fermentation, surely then, let's say you harvest it mid-September, by early November, it should still be okay? Or do you still think it should go till Christmas?
It's still improving, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think this year, actually, there's more maize in the ground.
Yep.
We're probably, we were like 15% up on sales.
Okay.
So there's a lot more maize in the ground.
Do you think that because of the spring we had, so people couldn't get spring barley in, so they put maize in instead?
Correct.
So you think it's a bit of a not misnomer, but it's a peak because of the weather rather than that's the drive of the way things have gone.
Yeah. But that's going to give a real opportunity for people to fill the silage pit.
Yep.
And then build up that buffer.
Yep.
That allows you, if you're carving in August, September, you've got over-yeared maize that you can
make the most
put in the diet.
Well, exactly. I mean, I used to have one client till he gave up a couple of years ago that he always had enough maize to see him through till Christmas, New Year. He was the only one that did, and he did it. There's so many people I know that I was talking to someone the other day, and he said, "Oh, we don't even sheet the front down properly because as soon as it's there, we start feeding it." And there are a lot of people like that.
Yes. Yeah. It's having the facilities on the farm to allow you to do that. The camp space,
and capacity exactly to do that and be able to grow it, etc. But you would still say ideally wait till after Christmas, even though it's harvested early. You'd still say wait till after Christmas.
Yeah.
That's interesting because, like I say, I usually say, well, 6 weeks is what you normally talk about.
Yeah.
I suppose rather too long than too short then.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's basic.
The starch is softening up in the clamp the longer you leave it, isn't it? And then, it's a really stable product. And, there's people that have had, maybe clamps sealed up for, a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then,
I remember that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've certainly mentioned, I remember in one in the past, there was a story coming out of, was it Queensland? Some guy dug out his silage, grass silage, admittedly, but he buried it in the side of a hill and it'd been there something like 27 years. And because it was properly sealed, it was fine. And he just put it there for a dry period.
Yeah.
And away you went.
Yeah.
So, as you say, as you say, the longer it's there, the better. But, I mean, reality is, you say, a lot of people start feeding it straight away. But, I mean, if you could leave it 6 weeks, I think then that's the ideal. I mean, I know there are some additives that allow you to feed quicker, definitely, which is a good thing and can be used in certain situations, but in a normal situation, and let's talk about that. So what sort of trials do you do with the MGA? Because I know it's not just trialling varieties, is it?
No, the trialling varieties really is a part, coordinated by NIAB at Cambridge. And the first 2 years of trialling now are done on behalf of DEFRA.
Okay.
And following Brexit, then the regulations changed so that all varieties for all species, so wheat and barley and everything, all the other crops.
Yes.
All of those varieties have to be tested in the UK and on the UK national list.
Not be imported from...
Yeah. We can't just find a suitable variety in northern France or Belgium and bring it into the UK anymore.
Right.
The Brexit regulations are that you have to have your varieties tested in the UK.
So you can't, what's the word? You can't bring a variety from France, say it's not on the list, but here you go.
Yeah.
It has to be tested.
No, it has to be tested now.
Okay. Because I know, that certainly used to happen, didn't it?
Yes, So that, and there were good varieties we could find. Maybe they're a grain variety in northern France, and actually they would be good for silage over here because you've got the high grain content.
Yeah.
But so that's expanded the variety testing side.
Right.
So, in the first year, we've probably testing about 60 different varieties.
Oh, because I've certainly been here before when you've done open days on, and I don't remember it being that many varieties here, but that's probably pre-Brexit thinking about it.
Yeah, there's gone up like 20 varieties a year.
Okay.
And then the breeders will make selections and, carry on with some of those varieties. So we've probably got 40 to 50 varieties in year 2. And then the breeders have
funneling down like we found with Jo when she was talking about the grass variety, starting with, was it 30, and then the same principle basically.
That's right.
Yeah. And then after the 2 years official DEFRA trials, then all of the breeders are open to pay for their varieties to go into the NIAB descriptive list system.
Right,
And that's what produces the new lists.
The new lists in terms of yields and what's the word? I'm trying to think of the words. There's some other one, standard, but not standability. There's a
standing ability.
Standing ability,
So in that we're testing maturity as dry matter. Dry matter yield, because that's critical for us. Lodging resistance, brackling resistance, early vigour, and then we also record if we see them smuts.
So disease.
Disease. And eye spot.
Right.
Do you do any for the trials? Is there any work done on digestibility? Because I've often had a couple of people say to me, years ago this variety the cows always did really well on it. Now I appreciate that's old genetics now, but put it down to the fact that it had a lot more digestibility and not more usability by the cow. So, as a breeder, are the breeders just going simply for yield and forgetting about who the end user is, which is often a cow? It can be a sheep or whatever else it happens to be, but we're talking cows. Is that lost sometimes, do you think? Or
No. As part of those official trialling and testing,
Yep.
then on every trial location, then there's samples taken.
Yep.
They are analysed by NIAB.
Yep.
And so from that, we get starch content,
Yep.
digestibility,
Yep.
and whole plant digestibility.
Okay. Yep.
And then they're all published on the descriptive list as well.
So it's all there. But what else are you actually trialing here? It's because it's not just varieties you trial, is it?
No, so just on this location, it is mainly varieties.
Yep.
So yes, I do all the work for NIAB and DEFRA.
Yep.
But I've also doing work for our breeders.
Yep.
So I buy genetic material from 3 different breeders.
Yep.
And so we're screening them in the UK.
Yep.
And it's always interesting when the young breeders come across and they think there's a difference in maturity between varieties of maybe 1 or 2 days.
Yep.
But in our maritime climate,
Yep.
that can stretch to 7 to 10 days.
Yeah, I've heard that comment before that, I don't know, let's say a breeder from France will go, oh, this will suit you. And it's like, no, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, it'll be Christmas maize. yeah.
Christmas harvesting. Maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
But I mean, no, but don't you test things like the fertilizer inputs, different
Yes,
types
we
of
do.
liquid products?
And then drought resistant, or is that coming in yet? Or?
Yeah, well, that's hard to do because you've got to
have a year with a drought.
have a year at a drought at the right time as well.
Yeah.
Sure,
So,
of course, yes. Yeah.
But for the maize growers, then
Yes.
yes, we do quite a lot of agronomy trials.
Right.
So yes, placement fertilizers. We've done quite a lot of focus on nitrogen levels.
Yep.
So we do an N curve trial
Yep.
from 0 nitrogen up to 150.
Phosphate as well?
Phosphate, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, which is on the placement
Yes.
fertilizers.
Yeah.
And then there's quite a lot of liquid nitrogen products now.
Yep.
So they're like non-scorch nitrogen you
Yep.
can apply to the plant just before it tassels.
Yep.
So sort of when it's chest high,
Yep.
and you can still get through with the sprayer.
Yep.
And then the theory on that is you're providing nitrogen to the plant as it's forming its grain.
Yep.
So it's not only in it under stress for nutrients,
Yep.
and then it will set more grain sites and have a higher starch content.
Right.
As you mentioned, chest high, do you still go with a knee high by the 4th of July?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you?
I'm saying.
It's an old saying, but you still go with
Well,
it.
one I also learned. Yeah, that's right.
So I had another question in my mind. It's gone out of my mind. But yeah, you're doing that, all sorts of different bits and pieces here in terms of trialing different fertilizers, different varieties. Yeah, where they are and aren't going. I suppose probably one of the first questions I started with is Flint and Dent.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference? Where do they come from? What do they offer? Because I was listening to a podcast only yesterday. I've already forgotten. Oh, here we go. I've written down. Good thing I've got my book open, isn't it? The US grow mainly Dent corn and Brazil mainly grow Flint corn. But my understanding here, we've always grown a cross of both. So what's the difference between both and why and how and what does that give us?
Okay, so there's sort of really different families in the genetics of maize.
Yep.
And so the Flint families give you early starch laydown.
Yep.
And so early harvest.
Yep.
And the Dents give you high grain yield.
Right.
So in the UK, we're very much, and most of Europe, we're crossing Flints and Dents.
So by that, you're saying Dent give you yield. So by
Grain yield,
grain
yeah.
yield. So
Yeah.
by that, the US are going for grain yield if
Yes.
they're mainly growing Dent. But given our climate, etc., we are trying to
Best of both worlds.
best of both worlds. Yeah,
that's right.
we want
Yeah.
the varieties. I mean, flip side of that, I had a client once that couldn't get to the maize, so we left it and we combined it in about February.
Yes.
And we rolled it, treated it with prop corn, stuck it under a sheet, thinking, oh well, we'll test it. We'll keep it for the summer when they're going to calve again. No point using it then. We'll test it. It came back nearly as good. I said to the client, you should be really pleased with this. It came back pretty much spot on with what my ration program has as an average for ground maize coming out of probably, I guess, the US or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So it shows we can do it. And I said to him, you should be really chuffed with that, because I was expecting it to be, I don't know, an Emmy or 2 down, but it was pretty much bang on the money for what my ration program said it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in the UK, probably 15 years ago, then there was quite a lot of grain maize done
Right.
for crimped.
For crimping, yeah.
And then AD came along, and
Yep.
so a lot of that maize that was going into crimping
Right.
has sort of gone into AD market to produce energy.
Has that, well, I was going to say, I know we're talking mainly about cows, but let's be honest, you say AD is coming more into it. Has that changed what's happening with variety? I guess they want a slightly different variety for the AD, do they?
Not really. Maize
Okay.
is maize.
Okay.
They need mature maize.
Yep.
It's just that they will harvest it and chop it at 6 to 8 mil.
Yep.
Whereas for a cow, we're probably going to be 15 to 18 mil
Yeah.
because we want some scratch.
We want some scratch, yeah. We want the fibre benefits, etc., etc. Okay, so that hasn't had a massive effect in terms of more just the effect it's had is on market demand, I guess.
Yeah, and competition for rented ground.
Yeah, I mean, take what was it, two summers ago, wasn't it? I think I was talking to one of your colleagues, and was it over your neck of the woods? So you're on the east. Was it they were harvesting maize at like half the usual height, and then it was dragging maize from the southwest or the west across.
Yeah.
And some of the you certainly saw maize double in price from what you
That's right.
I certainly remember. I mean, you normally, if you talk, let's say King's Hay costings, you normally put maize in about £40 a tonne in your pit.
You're showing your age there, Andrew.
Am I?
You better be thinking 55, really.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I think they still put it there, but okay.
Yeah.
But I certainly knew some that hit over £100 a tonne
Yeah, that's right.
out the pit.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so you think it should be 55 now when you look at the costings?
Yeah, I think that's a fair figure. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll definitely bear that in mind because in my head I still put it down as £40 a tonne, so maybe I am showing my age. Oh dear. But yes. So really, yes, as you're saying, going back to Flint and Dent, the Dent is for bulk of grain, the Flint is for early maturing.
Yeah.
Here in this country, we want a bit of both.
Yeah, we probably edge on the more flintier end than
Yep.
the Dent.
Yeah. Right.
Because, maize is a great feed, but it's got to be 30% dry matter. So
Yeah.
if you grow a variety that's too late to mature and you're
Yep.
not... you're
Just
not
thinking
getting
that
the
makes
benefit.
perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it does, to be honest with you. And I mean, sometimes with those ultra early varieties, you are compromising potential yield, aren't you? And I'm guessing that's because they've got more flint in those bloodlines to allow them to.
That's right. They go through their growth stages so much quicker.
Yeah.
So here at Lackham, then, we're 8-9 foot tall crop.
Yep.
Those really ultra early ones, then, they're 7 foot.
Yeah.
So there's less plant because it's just gone through its growth stages that much quicker.
I might like an ultra early variety. I might be able to see if it's a little bit stunted.
That's right.
Because even I can get lost in a field of maize. It's quite disconcerting sometimes. You lose your bearings in a field of maize.
Right.
Oh dear. But I mean, if we haven't already, we're going to go outside and have a look. I guess we'll have more look outside. But I mean, really, what would you round up as people should look for when they're looking to harvest maize?
Okay, so the key really is to look at all your fields. If you can access it in 2 or 3 different points, then have a look through 2 or 3 different gateways.
Yep.
Get off the headland, and then what I like to do is open up the cobs on 10 plants in a row, so you can see the evenness of the maturity.
You're talking just pulling the
Leaves
the
off.
leaf back.
The leaf back on the cobs.
Yep.
And then just select one that's average of those 10.
Yep.
Crack it open.
Yep.
And then you're looking at the milk line on the grain.
Yep.
And then I'll be squeezing the grain as well. And in the ideal world, then when you squeeze that grain as hard as you can, it gets a little tiny drop of juice come out the base of the grain.
Yep.
And you've still got a green plant, which
Yep.
has lots of sugar in it. And then it's time to call the contractor.
So you don't mind just having that little bit of
juice. A little bit of juice, a little bit of moisture in the base of the grain.
Because a lot of people will wait till that's completely dry.
Yeah, no, it's
That's why we're here.
Yes.
We're saying people are harvesting too late. Because I've certainly seen. I don't think I've had too much problem myself, but I know talking to some different nutritionists in the past, these cows aren't milking and the grain's going through them because it's just been harvested too late.
Yes.
It's let's be blunt, it's a bit like whole crop. You've got to get it right, or you end up, it goes through. It doesn't matter how much you crack it; it will go through the cow rather than in the cow.
Yeah. I think probably with maize, you have got probably a week, 10 days window.
You've got a bigger window than whole crop.
Than
Yeah,
whole crop.
definitely.
It might be 48 hours.
Yeah,
Right.
I know. That is it. One of the
But
biggest downsides with whole crop is you've got to get that window
gotta get it right.
harvesting right, haven't you?
Yeah,
or
that's right.
you can make a huge difference. We're now outside at the maize trials. We've just come away from the classroom here at Lackham where we recorded already. So we're now standing on, well, basically a big field of maize. You've obviously, someone's been through and knocked through bits down so you can get to the trials. Well, I guess, Neil Greggor, what's your thoughts on what you see at this stage before we ask Neil Groom what's going on?
Well, very nice set of maize.
You made his day now, haven't you?
I can't think of anything else I want to see. I like the pathway.
I'll say someone's been. So Neil Groom, tell us. To you and me, it just looks like a nice
set of
maize.
maize.
So
Yeah.
what's here?
Okay, so as I explained, then we've got a series of different trials here for NIAB and DEFRA. They're mostly variety trials here. There's just shy of 1,000 plots out here.
Yep.
And
Some of those are obviously repeats.
Oh yes, yeah. So they're all replicated.
the word, replicates, yeah.
Within an individual trial, they are full row plots. We will harvest the 2 middle rows.
Yep.
So then, if you've got a tall variety next to a short variety, the short variety is not impeded in any way.
The fact that, yeah.
Yeah. And then we have 3 replicates.
Yep.
And they're randomised. So we will harvest all the trial sequentially, go round and round in circles. And on each plot, then we will take a 750 to 1,000 gram sample.
Yep.
And then that's taken
It's
back.
not that big a sample, really, compared to what you're doing.
No, but the harvester, while you're going through the plot,
Yep.
and we're
It's dribbling.
it's taken a subsample throughout the whole of the plot.
Yep.
And typically here at Lackham, then we'll be getting 80 to 100 kilos of material off a 10 metre plot.
Yep.
So, a good yielding site here. Yeah. So it will be,
I suppose-
20 tonne an acre.
Yeah. Why
Sort
have
of
you
ballpark.
chosen Lackham, or why was Lackham chosen for trials?
Okay, well, Lackham and Philip here, the farm manager, is very accommodating and very helpful in allowing us
Helps.
to set up the trials. And what we're trying to do within the NIAB series is we've got 13 different locations around the country.
Yep.
And so they're on different soil types. And we've also got, a different range of climatic conditions. So we go from down in Kent, where we have a lot of heat units,
Yep.
and any variety will mature there, right up to Northallerton in Yorkshire, where there's only a selected number of varieties that come out of the trial system that are tested up there, and then some of those won't make it to 30 dry matter.
Well, I guess that begs the question: how far north can you successfully plant maize now with and without plastic, and how high in terms of altitude can you with and without plastic?
Okay, so going up the country, then we're up into Yorkshire without film.
It certainly never used to be, did it? Again, because early maturing varieties have allowed that to happen.
That's right. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. But sort of we then go further north by using film,
Yep.
which will raise the soil temperature early on in the season,
Yep.
so that you can get the plant established and for its growth.
So how far north do you know people?
So they're well up through Ayrshire.
Okay.
Using the film.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, then maize has got to be 30 dry matter.
Yeah.
Otherwise, grow whole crop.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And altitude wise?
Altitude, I'd always say 1,000 feet is more than enough.
Yeah.
So ideally you'd be below 700.
Yeah.
If you're above 700, wherever you are, then you got to really be very careful in your selection of varieties and just use the very, very ultra early varieties.
And I guess that begs the question: what does plastic bring to it? Do you think plastic brings enough to use it? Because I certainly see sometimes some springs sort of on the edge of the mendips, people using a bit of plastic, I guess, to get things up and going that bit quicker. I mean, they're all biodegradable.
Yes.
But yeah, tell us a bit more about plastic and its role.
Okay, yeah. So the film is put on using the Samco drill. So that is a sort of one-pass operation, which will plant the seed, spray the herbicide underneath the film, lay the film and bury the film all in one pass.
Yep.
And it will raise the soil temperature by 8 to 10 degrees
Okay.
underneath the film early on.
Yep.
And so you've got a much more biologically active soil.
Yep.
So, you're planting it in April, but probably the soil's behaving as if it's June.
Yep.
And that's why, we don't use any placement fertilizer with a Samco drill, because you're getting that phosphate release because the soil is warmer.
Because you've got the warmer temperature, it's allowing the phosphate in the soil to kick on quicker.
Yeah.
So ideally, if you've got a farm that's high in phosphate that says you shouldn't be using placement fertilizer because you've got, P4,
index fours. Yeah.
Would
Certainly.
you say that actually is probably worth considering, because then you're using the phosphate you've got without putting any more on?
Yeah. But your plant will naturally use it anyway, even if you're, planting out in the open, you're not using any film.
Yep.
So, it depends where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's take a walk towards the trials.
Okay, yeah, come on in.
Try not to electrocute yourself as you do.
Yeah, because all the trials, we put electric wire around to keep the badgers out. Because as we know, badgers like maize, because it's such a high energy source. If we have an accident within the trials and we don't have the wire up for some reason, maybe a deer's run through it, then you will find the badgers can come in and they will select the varieties. They will find the earliest varieties.
Do they?
Yeah, and then they'll roll it down and eat all the cobs.
They will go for it's not just random, they will go for a particular variety.
Yeah, because we've got those 3 replicates,
Yep.
you go through the 3 reps and they're all eaten. So,
Is that right? There you go. Learn something today then.
And do they dig up the roots as well? Is it?
No,
Not
they,
really,
they,
just
they
the
just
cobs.
after the cob. Yeah,
Wow.
just after the
Yeah.
start.
So they'll knock it down,
Yes.
get the cob,
Yeah.
and they soon
And then
work
move
it.
on to the next plant, and overnight they'll flatten the plot. So,
There you go. So what do we got in front of us now?
Okay, so now we're in a good part of the field here. The maize is probably 9 foot plus tall.
I should say it's a good bit of dirt looking at it.
Yeah.
Bit brashy, but
It's light and a little bit too stony in places. But this field was down to a grazing lay last year, so it had a lot of fertility. Both from the killed off sward and all the muck that's gone over the last 2 or 3 years, and so a great soil to grow maize.
it's on, definitely.
Yeah.
Sorry, so in front of us, I can see various little signs you put out obviously this morning.
Yes, yeah. So this is a part of our demonstration. So there's quite a range of maturity of varieties in here. From on the NIAB list, the earliest variety is Ceto. And to the latest one is probably a 7 or 8 week difference in maturity.
Oh, big difference.
A big difference, yeah.
Big difference. Do we still talk FAOs or not?
FAO.
Which is, I should say, what is an FAO?
Yeah, so it's a number scale. The lower the number, the earlier the variety matures. But
And what's it stand for again?
it's the Food and Agricultural Organization from America.
Right.
But it's not a scientific. It's not a scientific test you can do.
Yep.
So it's more of the breeder's instinct of actually what the varieties are. So Ceto, which I mentioned, that's like an FAO 150.
Yep.
And then we're typically, a lot of people be growing FAO 180s.
So it's 180s usually. It's more the norm, isn't it? Certainly down here.
Yeah, because you're getting the yield and you're getting the earliness.
Yep.
And then, I'm in East Anglia, so on our light sandy soils, then we might be growing an FAO 230 or 240 to spread our harvest as well.
Yep.
And as you go later, you tend to get a higher dry matter yield as well. So there's a relationship between earliness and yield.
So
dry matter
what
yield.
we were just talking about inside, and I'll probably get this completely the wrong way around, the higher the FAO, does that usually mean they've got a bit more dent?
Yeah, but it's also the physical size of the
Right.
plant as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so Yeah. And so my job as, as a breeder is like looking at the material that's come from the breeders in France and working out where in the UK I can grow those varieties in the, required harvest period for that area. So, yeah.
And what's your base for the trials? You've usually got a base variety. What's your current base variety?
Yeah, so there's, within the NIAB system, we have 4 control varieties.
That's the word, yeah.
Yeah, so they're, and they're grown in all of the trials, and that allows the statisticians to compare the data from one trial site to another trial site, and also across the different trial series. Yep. And we select those trial control varieties as, long-term, stable varieties that have proven themselves.
And what are they currently?
So we have the earliest variety is Bonnie, which is very high quality variety. Then we have some Conclusion, Pasco is one of them. And so as a trials operator, we will be monitoring the dry matter content of those varieties every week. And that's what determines when we actually come and harvest the trials.
I mean, mention DEFRA here, as I knew there's another question in my head. Is there much grain maize grown in this country now?
Yeah, grain maize. Yeah, there will certainly be quite a lot done this year because we've had that, 10-15% increase in the maize area.
Yeah.
And some of that will go through to grain.
Yeah.
So again, the important thing is actually selecting a variety that will be harvested before Christmas, because I always say a rule of thumb is you can combine it 6 weeks after you would silage it.
Okay.
So here at Lackham, then we'll be doing silage harvest maybe 3rd week of September.
Yep.
2nd, 3rd week of September. So you're pushing into November to cut it for grain.
Going back to the reference I made when we were inside, the fact that it had someone harvest it in February, that's not a problem, is it? I mean, that was simply because that's when we could get on the land to harvest it.
Yeah.
Because usually by that point, you ain't got a chance of getting out there.
Yeah. It's not ideal, but it happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Because, the weather closes in before Christmas and not allowing people to harvest.
Yeah.
Whether that's silage or for combine. But for combining now, then a lot of people that are doing it, you have to have a specialist header because you're only cutting or picking off the cobs.
Yep.
So the combine drum is only thrashing the cob.
Yep.
And then the stover gets smashed up with a big flail underneath the picker header.
Yep. Yep.
So we're 6 weeks after silage harvest. So realistically, then it's November before you're cutting.
Okay.
A lot of combines are on tracks.
Yep.
And so it's just the combine that's on the field. The tracks will be running on that bed of chopped up stover.
Yeah.
So actually you don't do any soil compaction problems because you've spread the weight of the combine.
Yeah.
You've not got trailers running on there.
We'll bring the combine back to the gate or whatever to unload.
Yes. Yeah. And then, so the grain will be, 28 to 32% moisture content.
Yep.
So ideally, you would then crimp that because that's the cheapest way of conserving it.
Yep.
There are some people that will, bring it into the grain store and dry it.
Yep.
But obviously, it's going to cost you £15+ to take it down from 30 to 40.
I think the one client I'm referring to, it dried to where it needed to be, so we just rolled it and prop corned it and stored it, and it worked really well.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like rocket fuel. That'll be 14.5 ME, 70% starch. It's a concentrate rather than a forage.
Yeah, definitely. So, should we take a wander down and tell us about some of these varieties or what we're looking for when we're looking at varieties?
Yeah. Let's get in and have a look at the varieties.
That sounds good. Good old Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely by name, lovely by nature is what a few people have said to me over the years.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, as I explained, they're 4-row plots. We'll harvest the 2 middle rows. In these demonstrations, I've set them out in maturity order. So Cito is the earliest variety that's been through the NIAB system for a number of years. And so, when we have a look at that...
Well, I'll say, what's wrong with this row here, Neil?
Okay, so because there's a pylon in the field, the sprayer operator has actually had to miss the pylon, and so he's just
Because
cut
it
through.
should say we're looking at, I'm guessing, some ceto from
Yes.
looking at the label,
Yep.
and it's probably what, 2 foot, would you say, Neil? Shorter
Yeah,
than
absolutely.
what's
Yeah,
next to it.
yeah.
Got
And-
the odd one, but most of it's shorter.
And a lot,
than it
lot
should be.
less healthy looking.
Yes, yes. So that explains why that is, obviously.
Yeah, as I said, it's gone for its growth stages quick.
Yeah.
But the maturity is coming on.
Yeah.
And if I have a look at some of the cobs here, then you can see we've got a good yellow colour in there.
Wow, considering where are we now? Late August at the moment,
Yeah.
just before the bank holiday. That's quite a mature looking
Yeah,
cob,
absolutely.
isn't it? I wasn't expecting it to be that far along. Oh
Yeah.
wow, looking inside as well.
Yeah. So as I say, when I look at a farmer's crop, then I'd go into the crop off the headlands, open up 10 cobs in a row, crack them open, and have a look.
Thanks.
Yeah, there's good starch in there. Good gritty starch, isn't there? Yeah.
That is a lot further along than I was expecting. So I know when we tried to fix the date to make this work, it was like, we were juggling when to do it because we want it to be right to look like we're ready to harvest, but not too late that we can't get out there. And this is a lot more mature than I was expecting for the date we are.
Yeah. And I think that, this is a free draining soil.
Yes.
There's quite a lot of brash in it. So, that is a factor. We drilled this on the 24th of April.
Yep.
So
relatively early.
relatively early this season.
Yep.
Yeah, because there was plenty of people that couldn't make
Until
a seedbed.
Some people didn't till June, did
That's
they?
right. Yeah. And so those later drill crops, then they will knock on to a later harvest.
Yep.
And my rule of thumb is, 2 weeks in the spring is a week harvest date. So if you delay by 2 weeks in the spring,
Yep.
you'll probably be a week later to harvest.
So by that, you're saying, let's say people are June, that's 6 weeks. Let's say 6 weeks. You're saying they're potentially going to be 3 weeks later harvesting
than they would normally.
than they would normally. So if you
Yeah.
were looking at I know we're looking at one cob, one plant, but based on what you're seeing at the moment, when would you be thinking harvest?
This could be, 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably 2 weeks with the genetics of this, because it is, designed to go through, bred to go through the growth stages quick and
Yep.
lay the starch down quick.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's what I always say is you've got to get into your crops. They're still going to be green.
Yep.
You've got to look at the cobs. In that row, 2 or 3 different places within the field or within your farm.
Yep.
And make that
Exactly.
assessment.
Fields can have different soil types within the same field, can't they?
Yeah. Then the other thing I like to do is actually take my knife out, cut the plant off at the bottom, and then you're actually looking at the stem and looking at how much juice is still in the stem. So come up a couple of nodes and then you twist the stem as hard as you can, and when they're ready to cut, then you'll be twisting that as hard as you can and you'll get no juice out. Obviously today we're getting quite a lot of water out because we're in August.
And we've had some rain today as well.
Yeah. But that's another good practical tool that you can do to have a look and determine your harvest
I'll
date.
be honest, it's not one I'd ever heard before.
Yeah. So look at the cobs, look at the stem, and twist them stems and see how much moisture is there.
But it's the fact that you're saying that once harvesting, when there's still just that little bit of juice in there.
Yeah. When you're pushing those, really nipping the grain up,
Yeah.
should still be a little bit of moisture in there.
So we're looking at a ceto, which you say is the early variety. So this should be the one that should be finished first.
Yes. Yeah.
Or ready first.
Yeah. And we try to sort the varieties into different trials that will be harvested at different times. So although I've got 1,000 plots here, then we will have at least 2 harvest dates here, so that we actually take them at their optimum quality.
Yep.
Because when you've got a spread of, probably 12-14% dry matter, you want to be harvesting them so you get a fair result.
So you go maybe on this, but then you'd also go on some of the later stuff. So some of this would be a little bit mature by that point, but it gives you a good what's the word? Broad average of what's going on.
That's right. Yeah. We're aiming to cut each individual trial, so it's between 30 and 35% dry matter content.
And say 30% is your ideal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anything else along here worth taking a look
Oh
at?
well, they're all my babies. They're all good. Yeah, but no.
Well, actually, I've just seen one that says Corrit and Thorse on it.
Yeah.
Where are we now? Because it used to be, what was the one that's now gone?
Meserol.
Meserol. Meserol's gone. But I remember probably yourself telling me, well, actually, Corrit's probably a bit more hardcore than Meserol.
Yeah. So
For us.
yeah.
So obviously making sure you're wearing your PPE when you're putting it out there.
Yeah.
But what's the go with Corrit now? Where are we with Corrit?
Okay. Yeah. So Corrit is a seed dressing that's applied in the factories.
Switzerland, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it was registered. Yeah, the active ingredient in Corrit was registered in Switzerland. But because in the UK all maize seed is produced in Europe, because we don't have the climate for the parental lines of the hybrids of the seed that we grow. So, one of our breeders is based down in the French Pyrenees, which allows them to have a different male in each valley in the Pyrenees. And then they'll be growing them out in the seed production fields. So you will have 2 rows of male, 6 rows of female, 2 rows of male, and they will drill the males probably 4 or 5 days apart. So they spread the pollen drop to prolong the length of time where you can actually get fertilization of the females.
But how? Where is Corrit in terms of the market now?
Okay, so all the maize is packed and the seed is treated in Europe. Again, because of Brexit, then the pesticide regulations in the UK mean that we have to have all pesticides registered in the UK. But because we didn't actually apply Corrit in the UK, because it's done by the breeders, then it was never on the UK pesticide register.
Right.
So because of Brexit, we had to lobby DEFRA to get Corrit added, and also Force, which is a wireworm treatment, added to the UK register. And so we've got Corrit allowed to use Corrit till 2027.
Okay.
Providing it's still available within Europe. But we're obviously now looking for new active ingredients to act as a bird deterrent.
But I know you have done trials within the MGA, haven't you, in terms of planting non-treated seed to, in case we lose, as it was, Meserol or Corrit, so we have no protection. Bird repellent, is that probably the right word for it?
Yeah, that's right. They're originally Meserol, and we had Meserol for 20 odd years, was applied as a bird deterrent. It was very effective, but it came to the end of its life. Corrit was its replacement. It's not quite as good as a bird deterrent as Meserol, but that's what we've got. And now there's another, a couple of products that are in development. And we're testing them to see their effectiveness. But as you said, we did do, as maize growers, we did do some trials when Meserol was finishing as to whether we used untreated seed, if we planted it deeper, below.
Is it 4 inches deep?
Yeah, if you put it 4 inches deep, then rooks and crows, their beaks aren't quite as long as that. So we were planting it, down below where they could get to, but they're crafty so-and-sos. They would then dig a sort of little hole to get down deeper, so they could still get it. So we still did see some loss.
So they're digging a pit effectively to get down rather than just going straight down.
Yes, And I mean, they are so clever. They find the row, they know. They work out they're going to be 12, 13 centimetres apart, and they will walk down the row and they'll take every plant out. And last year here at Lackham, then we did lose the trials because
That's
they
what they did.
essentially ate the field. And, 100,000 seeds per hectare. It's 5 hectare field. We had some fat crows.
I was to say, that's some fat crows, aren't you?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
dear. But
Yeah. So for this year, then the trials team here have caned and cottoned the whole of the site,
Yep.
so that we didn't have that bird damage.
caned and cottoned.
Yeah. So 7 foot
Oh,
canes.
right, yeah.
Strung them up with cottons
Yes,
like a big
yes.
knit and patting
Yeah.
pattern, and
To
just kept-
scare them away, basically.
yes, yeah. So they didn't fly in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some work goes into this, doesn't there?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, but that's what you need to do.
But yeah, so what else is there along here you think's worth us taking a quick look at?
Yeah, so breeding is always improving all of the time, and what we're trying to do is we have our existing commercial varieties. The breeders are then put new varieties forward, and we're making that side by side comparison
Yep.
as to whether they're improvement or whether they're not. So on the current descriptive list, then this variety here we're alongside now is called Faith. So that's in the main FAO 170 to 180 varieties,
Yep.
maturities.
Yep.
But we're looking at a lot more yield. So we're sort of CETO is very specialist and very early, but it's like 94-95% yield. We're now looking at 104 yield.
Looking at this, it looks. Am I looking at it wrong? It looks like there's some double cobs on this Faith. Is that right?
Yeah, you'll find a lot of double cobbing this year because it's a stress reaction
So
by the plant.
it's stress causes double cobbing, isn't it?
Yeah. So we had a cold spring,
Yep.
and the plant is initialising its cob when it's the sort of 6-leaf stage. So when it's sort of about knee high, it was quite cold in June then.
Yep.
And so the plant sort of is not. It's like, well, I'm under stress, so I'll produce 2 cobs, double my chances
double
of
your
producing seed.
But they usually aren't as big a cob, are they?
No. So if you count the number of grains,
Yep.
then often you won't get as many grains on the 2 cobs as you will on a single good
cob.
cob. Yeah. So yes, again you can see plenty of biomass there, and within 3 weeks, we'll be ready to shop.
So you're going to have an open day here.
Yeah.
At the moment, when is that looking?
Well, our initial plan was for the 17th of September.
Yep.
But having come down today, then I'm thinking that maybe we need to be a week earlier because actually the crop is further on
Than expected. So
we have to be adaptable.
yeah. So if you want to come and see this, come to Lackham on whatever it happens to be, the 10th or the 17th, was it?
Yeah, I'll let you know, Andrew, as to what day it's finally going to be.
Yeah. And come and have a look, because it's worth. I mean, I do it every couple of years because things change as time goes on.
That's right. Yeah, breed. The breeders are always progressing. We always have a new cohort of varieties, and it's important to make those comparisons and get the genetic improvement.
Right.
So, same as you have with that. The key is to get out into your fields, make those assessments, talk to a contractor,
Yep.
make sure he's got you planned in when you want him to come, rather than he say that he's driving those decisions. You need to be doing it.
But from what you've said inside and out, it's look at that cob, look at a number of them across, and have a little bit of juice. Don't wait for it to be completely dry. A little bit of juice, and also cut at the bottom of the plant, twist it, and see what moisture you get. No, ultimately you shouldn't be getting anything out of that when you twist it.
No, that's right.
Really practical. Yeah.
If it came down to choice of cob or plant as to when you should harvest,
Cool.
cob. Like whole crop, go with the grain
Yes.
rather than the plant. It doesn't matter if the plant's still a little bit green. If the cob's right, go for it.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And the crops are naturally greener than they were 10 years ago. That's what we're bred them for.
We've bred them to be early, haven't we?
Early, start late.
Neil Greggor, you've got any last
No, that's
comments out
great.
here?
No, that's excellent.
Learned a lot?
I did.
Good. That's what we're here for. If you're learning, hopefully people listening to this are learning as well.
You'd think.
Right. So, okay, we've been outside, and thank you for showing us round, Neil. So, I mean, I'm just looking at the time a little bit, really. Any last words of wisdom to people?
Yeah, I think, it's get organised.
Yep.
Get organised in the farmyard, because when the contractors come, the kit's so big now.
But it's not just kit, it's making sure you've got everything else. Because I know in previous role, oh, can I have some silage sheet? When do you want it? Tomorrow?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Chicken stock.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you say get ready, make sure your pit's ready, make sure your silage sheet's there, make sure if you're using an additive, your additive's there.
Yeah.
I suppose, quick question, do you think maize should use additive to
Well, I was
harvest it?
just thinking that.
Yeah. Well, I always say the first additive used is diesel.
Yep.
Because it's just about rolling.
Yeah.
Compaction, excluding that air.
People don't seem to roll as much as they used to, I don't think.
No, well, I think it's because, you're getting a, 18-ton trailer roll in.
Yeah.
And if they're working close to the yard, there could be one of those turning up every 4 or 5 minutes.
I've certainly had a client, you say that quickly, a client in the past that his contractor, he would suddenly get 4 or 5 in trailers in a row, then he'd probably have half an hour break. And I was saying to him, you need to tell them to slow down, because we were finding the face was collapsing and it was causing mycotoxin problems. So his cows were falling off a cliff. And that's what it came down to, is they were coming in too fast. So, as you say, he had...
And too much at one time.
He
then
said,
you can't,
he might have had 160 tons of maize, 150, 160 tons of maize was whack on there, wasn't rolled. And then probably, I find, to be honest with you, find a lot of people, if it's not there, they sit there. Whereas, I mean, when I was a child, it was always told, roll, 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 roll. If you're waiting for a trailer, you roll.
just get on rolling.
You're not sitting there waiting. You are roll, 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 roll. And people just don't seem to... But that's what it was. Is it was like, no, you need to tell your contractor to slow down when they come, not suddenly have 6 trailer loads and then nothing, because that's what was causing his problem every time.
Yeah. In the ideal world, the buck rate driver is the guy who's controlling harvest, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Should
we
be.
know, we know what
sure makes
contractors
sense.
are like.
Yeah.
Well,
just gotta...
I think I've told this story before. You've probably heard it, Neil. When I was in Oz, we had silage, and the guy said he was sending his A-team, so we'd managed to do a second cut that year. And we were like, well, why didn't you send the A-team to start with? Anyway, turn up. Huge grade class Maxim, dual wheels, buck rake on the front, doing the buck rake. Best person coming out. And you think, oh, who's this going to be? Out from the cab stepped this little old lady that was a 60-year-old mother, and I'll tell you something, she knew what she was doing. She was damn good on that pit. She knew what she was doing, definitely.
She was in control.
She was in control and knew what she was doing. It was just the fact that she was this very small little lady in this huge, great tractor. But yeah, so rolling, you're saying. So that was your first, but would you use an additive?
I think, they definitely got their place. And sort of some of the newer modern ones, then actually they can prevent heating, doing feed out.
Yep.
So that can be really good.
Yep.
Because you've not got any refusals then in the trough.
But yeah, so roll it well, make sure you're prepared, roll it well. What was it? Make sure it's prepared, roll it well. In that case, make sure if you're using an additive, you've got an additive, you've got your silage sheet, you've got whatever you're going to cover it with, whether it's gravel bags or whatever.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Just be safe as well.
Yes, definitely.
Because it's big kit, and people are under time pressure.
Yep.
And this year, probably, if harvest is a week or two later,
everybody's going to be.
Yeah, and also darker earlier in the evening, and that does make a difference.
That's a fair comment. Be safe.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing, be safe.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts from yourself?
That was great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It's been my life. So.
Yeah, it sounds like it has been.
Well, let's be honest, most of the people we talk to, it's been their life, hasn't it? It's been their passion, whether it's maize
absolutely.
or cows or whatever it happens to be,
Yeah.
or something around the cow, it's usually their passion.
Yeah, it's lovely to hear the passion.
Exactly. So on that note, I'd like to thank Neil Groom in this case, for his time, and obviously Neil Greggor for being here. But thank you very much, Neil. So thank you and a goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Yeah. Goodbye from me as well.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Chewing the Cud podcast, a podcast to the UK dairy industry, brought to you from the southwest of England and listened to around the world. And now for the really boring bit, I'm afraid, the legal disclaimer. The information provided during this podcast has been prepared for general information purposes only and does not constitute advice. The information must not be relied upon for any purpose, and no representation or warranty is given to its accuracy, completeness, or otherwise. Any reference to other organisations, businesses or products during the podcast are not endorsements or recommendations of Chewing the Cud Limited. The views of Andrew Jones are personal and may not be the views of Chewing the Cud Limited, and the views of Neil Greggor are personal and may not be the views of Viking Genetics and any affiliated companies. For more information on the podcast and details of services offered by Chewing the Cud Limited, visit www.chewingthecud.com. Thank you and goodbye.